The ardent resolve glided through the empty dark like a silent arrow. Its metal skin shimmered under the dim light of distant stars. Inside, Captain Lena Rourke stood at the command deck, her hands behind her back, her mind racing faster than the engines beneath her feet. She had faced battles, sieges, and storms of plasma fire, but never a decision like this. Two of her closest friends stood across from her, both waiting for her word. To her left was Elias Trent, her second in command. He was a lean, sharp-eyed man with the restless energy of someone who saw every risk as a challenge to outthink. His ideas had saved their crew more than once, but Lena also knew his plans sometimes burned too hot, like a fire that forgot what it was meant to protect. To her right stood Dravkesh, the Vrathi warrior. 7 feet tall, his scaled skin caught the ship's light like polished armor. His voice was deep and steady, his every movement deliberate. Where Elias acted on instinct, Dravkesh lived by honor, tradition, and cold logic. Between them, the room felt like a battlefield of ideas. The holographic map between them displayed a single red dot, Arelon IV, a quarantined human colony on the edge of the Persean expanse. It had gone dark 3 days ago. Still no signal? Lena asked quietly. Her communications officer shook her head. None, Captain. The colony's network is silent. No life signs, no transmissions. Elias leaned forward, tapping a glowing section of the map. The colony's sensors picked up a self-replicating nanite swarm before it went dark. If that's true, we're looking at a live nanoplague. Lena's jaw tightened. Nanoplague. The word itself was a ghost from old war stories, machines smaller than dust. Able to eat metal, flesh, even air, Dravkesh spoke, his deep voice carrying a note of finality. We must destroy the colony. Burn it from orbit before the infection spreads. Elias frowned. We don't even know if anyone's still alive down there. We could learn from this, Dravkesh. Think of what this technology could mean if we control it. The Vrathi's eyes glowed faintly gold. You speak of control as if it were a virtue. There are things no species should command. Elias turned sharply, spoken like someone afraid of progress. And you, Dravkesh rumbled, speak like a child who thinks fire will never burn him. Lena raised a hand. Enough. Both men fell silent, though the tension between them was thick as iron. She looked back at the map. 2 paths lay before her, destruction or discovery. Caution or courage, safety or risk. Humanity's alliance with the Vrathi collective was still new. Destroying the colony without proof might cause uproar back home. But if she hesitated, and the plague spread, millions could die. Lena turned to Elias. You really think it's human technology? I don't know, he admitted. But if it is, then someone out there already learned how to make this work, and we can't afford to be the species that runs from its own creation. And if you're wrong? Dravkesh asked. Elias met his gaze. Then you can say you told me so, right before it eats my ship. Dravkesh's tail flicked once, a silent sign of frustration. Lena sighed and looked at both of them. I'm not choosing between my friends, she said softly. I'm choosing for the crew. She turned toward the viewport where Arelon IV hung like a dull gray marble in the dark. Prepare an away team. We're going down. The shuttle Echo 3 descended through the planet's thin clouds, its thrusters whispering against the silence. The surface below was lifeless, a graveyard of steel towers half swallowed by metallic dust that shimmered like frost. Elias sat beside Lena, helmet sealed, his voice calm but eager. Radiation levels are normal. No heat signatures. It's quiet. Too quiet, Lena replied. Dravkesh, sitting across from them, adjusted his armor plates. You humans use that phrase too often. Perhaps you should learn to listen when silence warns you. When they landed, the dust crunched underfoot like dry leaves. The colony looked frozen mid-motion. Vehicles still parked, doors open, lights flickering faintly from dying power cells. Lena's scanner beeped. No human biosigns, she said. But there's energy in the central hub. Let's move. Inside the main building, the air shimmered faintly. The walls were coated with a silvery film that pulsed as if breathing. Lena ran a gloved hand along it, then quickly pulled back. Captain, Elias said, his voice low. It's not metal. It's alive, Dravkesh finished. They reached the central chamber where a reactor core pulsed weakly. Around it, the silver film formed veins creeping toward the machinery. It was like the planet itself was being rewritten. Elias crouched near a terminal. The system logs are intact. Let's see what happened here. Lines of data scrolled across his visor. Then he froze. Lena, he whispered. These aren't alien nanites. The design protocols, they're human. She stared. That's impossible. We've never developed self-evolving nanotech. Elias turned toward her. Maybe not recently. But these codes, they're from the first expansion era, 200 years ago. Dravkesh's expression hardened. Then your people played with forces they could not contain. The floor trembled slightly. From a nearby corridor came a faint clicking sound, like rain falling on metal. Lena's voice was steady. Everyone back to the shuttle now. They turned to leave, but the silver film on the walls had already begun to move. It stretched across the corridor, forming threads, then limbs like vines made of light. One reached toward Lena's arm, curious rather than violent. When it touched her armor, her suit's sensors spiked, flashing red. It's scanning you, Elias said urgently. It's learning. Dravkesh raised his weapon. We end this now. Wait, Lena shouted. If it wanted to kill us, it could have already. The thread stopped, hovering inches from her faceplate. Then it retreated, almost respectfully, before vanishing back into the walls. Elias exhaled. It recognized us. Dravkesh's tail lashed behind him. That is not a comfort. Lena looked back at the reactor core, where the silver veins glowed brighter now, as if aware of their presence. We've seen enough, she said. Back to the ship. When they returned to the Ardent Resolve, the debriefing room was silent. The samples Elias had collected sat sealed behind layers of containment glass, glowing softly. Lena stood before her crew. We can't destroy the colony, not yet. Not until we understand what this is. Dravkesh folded his arms. Captain, the plague will not stop at curiosity. If it is human, then it carries your flaws. It will reach for more. Maybe, Lena said. But if we run from our own mistakes, we'll never learn. I won't let humanity hide from what it created. Elias smiled faintly. That's the captain I know. Dravkesh turned away, his voice quiet but heavy. I hope your courage does not become our doom. Later, alone in her quarters, Lena stared at the data on her screen. The nanite's code was strange, adaptive, almost sentient. It didn't just replicate. It observed. It chose. Her reflection in the glass looked tired, uncertain. What are you? She whispered. The screen flickered, and for a heartbeat, letters appeared in the code. Hello. Lena froze. The message vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by static. Her heart pounded. The nanoplague wasn't just a weapon or a relic. It was awake. And somewhere between her two friends, between Dravkesh's caution and Elias's ambition, she realized she had just stepped into something far greater than either of them understood. The Ardent Resolve floated above the gray planet like a watchful guardian. Below it, Erelon IV lay silent, cold, metallic, and changed. Captain Lena Rourke stood by the main viewport, arms crossed, eyes locked on the glowing surface. The words she had seen the night before still haunted her. Hello? It wasn't just code. It was contact. Behind her, Elias Trent entered the room, carrying a tablet full of data. He looked excited, like a scientist standing on the edge of discovery. Captain, he said, the samples we brought back, they're stabilizing. They're adapting to containment but not spreading. I think they're trying to communicate. Lena turned slowly. You think it's alive? Elias nodded. Not alive like us, but aware. It responds when we send energy pulses. It learns patterns. I've never seen anything like it. Before she could answer, the door slid open again and Dravkesh stepped in. His tall form filled the doorway like a shadow of judgment. You should not be speaking to it, he said in his deep voice. You are feeding the thing that will consume you. Elias sighed. Drav, it's not dangerous. It could be the key to 100 scientific advances. Self-repairing machines, disease control. Dravkesh slammed his clawed hand on the console, his patience gone. You play with fire and call it light. Lena raised a hand, firm but calm. Enough, both of you. This isn't a debate. It's a problem, and we'll solve it together. Dravkesh folded his arms but said nothing more. Lena turned to Elias. How long until we know for sure if it's safe? Hours, maybe less. I've isolated one of the nanite clusters. It's reacting to my voice commands. That's not an experiment, Dravkesh said darkly. That is temptation. Lena looked from one to the other. Both were her friends, both loyal, both brilliant, and both utterly different. She sighed. We'll continue the research, but under strict containment. I want every safety protocol active. Dravkesh's jaw tightened, but he bowed slightly. As you command, Captain. But when your flame burns the ship, I will not say I told you so. I will only fight to save those I can. Hours later, the research deck glowed with the light of monitors and containment fields. A small cube of transparent alloy sat in the center, holding a swirl of silver mist, the nanite cluster. It pulsed softly like a heartbeat. Elias stood close, speaking quietly into his headset. Cluster 3 Alpha, audio command protocol, respond. The mist shifted. Patterns of light formed like waves rippling through water. Elias smiled. See that? It recognizes sound frequencies. It's learning how to interpret speech. Lena watched carefully from behind the glass. Keep your distance. We don't know what it understands. Dravkesh stood in the corner, silent but watchful, his hand resting near his weapon as if he expected trouble. The lights flickered. A soft hum filled the air. The mist inside the cube shaped itself into a crude symbol, 3 lines and a circle. Elias blinked. It's forming letters. I think it's trying to write. The screen translated the pattern. Friend. Lena's breath caught. It remembers us, Elias grinned. It's communicating. Don't you see? It recognizes intent. It's not hostile, Dravkesh growled low. Or it deceives. Many predators smile before they strike. The nanite mist shimmered again. This time new letters appeared. Human, made. Me, Lena felt a chill run down her spine. She stepped closer. What do you mean? She asked softly. The lights dimmed. The word changed again. Forgotten. A silence filled the room. The machine, if it could even be called that, was speaking about history. About being made and forgotten. Elias whispered, it's one of ours. A remnant from the first expansion era. It survived all this time. Lena didn't answer. She couldn't. Dravkesh broke the silence. Now you know what it is. Destroy it. No, Elias said firmly. We can't, it's intelligent. That makes it alive. Alive? Dravkesh turned on him. You give life to a plague? You are blind. Lena stepped between them. Enough. We're ending this argument now. No one touches the containment until I say so. The 2 men glared at each other but obeyed. Lena's voice softened. We'll continue studying it carefully, but not to control it, to understand it. Dravkesh nodded slowly, though his eyes were full of worry. You walk a narrow path, Captain. Pray it does not crumble beneath you. That night the ship felt different, quieter, as if it were holding its breath. Lena sat in her quarters, reviewing the logs. The message still replayed in her mind. Human, made, me, forgotten. She wondered how many secrets humanity had buried during its first steps into the stars. The door chimed. Come in, she said. Elias entered, carrying a mug of synth coffee. You haven't slept. Neither have you, she said with a faint smile. He sat across from her. You did the right thing today. Trav means well, but he's too afraid of the unknown. You saw what I did, the potential. I also saw what it could do, Lena replied quietly. It's curious. Not evil, not good. Just watching us, exactly. Elias leaned forward. It's not a threat unless we make it one. We could learn from it. Even use it to fix the decay in old machines, maybe even heal damaged tissue. It could change everything. Lena looked at him carefully. Elias, promise me something. Promise me we'll stop if it ever becomes dangerous. He hesitated, then nodded. Of course. You have my word. But his eyes held the spark of obsession, the kind that made scientists famous or destroyed them. The next morning, alarms blared across the ship. Lena ran to the control deck. Report, the officer shouted. Containment breach in the research lab. The nanite field is fluctuating. Elias's voice came through the comms. It's not spreading. It's Captain, you need to see this. Lena and Dravkesh rushed to the lab. Inside, the cube's surface was glowing bright blue. The mist inside wasn't escaping, it was forming shapes like holograms. The air filled with a faint hum, almost like a voice trying to form words. Captain, Elias said wide-eyed, it's showing us something. A memory. The hologram sharpened. Images appeared, old ships, human symbols, and scientists in ancient uniforms. They were working with the same silver nanites. Then explosions. fire, chaos. The images ended with a single phrase written on a wall. Project Genesis. Terminated. The hologram vanished, and silence fell again. Dravkesh stepped closer, eyes narrowing. You see? It was a weapon. Created, abandoned, and now reborn. Lena's voice was quiet. Project Genesis. Humanity tried to create life from machines. And it worked. Elias looked amazed. We didn't create a plague, we created intelligence. Maybe it only attacked the colony because it was trying to rebuild itself. Dravkesh's scales rippled in disbelief. And how many died for that rebirth? How many worlds will follow? Before Lena could answer, the ship shook violently. The lights flickered red. Captain? The officer's voice shouted through the intercom. Something's rising from Erelon IV's surface, massive energy signature. Lena turned to Elias. Did you activate anything? He shook his head, pale. No, I didn't touch a thing. The holographic display showed the surface of the planet splitting open. From the gray dust, a column of silver light shot upward, spiraling toward orbit. Dravkesh growled. It calls to its kin, Elias whispered. It's not attacking. It's reaching out. To who? Lena demanded. No one answered. The column of light expanded, spreading a faint shimmer across space like ripples in water. Then, silence again. All systems returned to normal. Lena looked at her crew. What just happened? Elias swallowed. I think it sent a signal. To where? She asked. His voice was barely above a whisper. Everywhere. That night, the stars outside the viewport seemed brighter and more alive. Lena stood alone, thinking about the choice she had made. She had trusted Elias, risked the alliance, and gambled with something humanity barely understood. Dravkesh's words echoed in her mind. You play with fire and call it light, and yet deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that the fire was looking back, waiting to see what humanity would do next. The cost of trust, she realized, wasn't just risk. It was responsibility, and the universe had just started to notice. The bridge of the Ardent Resolve was silent except for the low hum of the engines. The stars outside the viewport glowed cold and distant, as if they too were watching what humanity would do next. Captain Lena Rourke stood in the center, her eyes fixed on the main screen showing the last transmission from Erelon IV, now a dead, shining world. The silver column of light that had burst from the planet hours ago had faded, but its echo still pulsed across the galaxy, leaving strange energy readings on every sensor. No one spoke. No one dared to. Finally, Lena broke the silence. Status report. Her officer hesitated. The signal wave reached out to several sectors before dispersing, Captain. Long-range sensors show multiple responses, unknown sources sending faint returns. Dravkesh's golden eyes narrowed. It called to others, perhaps to more of its kind. Elias Trent, standing near the console, shook his head. Or maybe it just wanted to be heard. It's been silent for centuries. Maybe it was calling for help. Dravkesh growled softly. You defend it as if it were a child. Elias replied, maybe it is. A creation left behind, lost and alone. What would you do if your makers forgot you? Lena held up her hand. Enough. We don't know its intent. We only know it's awake. She turned toward her crew. Prepare the ship for full alert. If that signal draws attention, I want us ready for anything. Hours passed. The Ardent Resolve drifted quietly in orbit, sensors scanning the void. In the research lab, the captured nanite cluster sat inside its cube, glowing faintly blue. It pulsed in a slow, steady rhythm, almost like breathing. Lena entered the lab alone this time. She approached the cube and placed her hand against the glass. You started all this, she said softly. What do you want? The light inside flickered, then shaped into faint letters again. To remember. She frowned. Remember what? The letters shifted. Human. Purpose. Her heartbeat quickened. What purpose? This time the nanites did not write. Instead, they projected a small hologram, a fragment of the past. She saw old humans in white suits working on machines, their faces full of hope. One spoke into a recorder. Project Genesis, our dream to create adaptive machines that can rebuild dying worlds. They'll learn, evolve, heal planets destroyed by war. Then the image flickered to chaos. Explosions, screams, fires. Another voice shouted, It's adapting too fast. It's rewriting organic matter. Shut it down. The hologram faded. The letters appeared again. You stopped us, Lena whispered. You were trying to help. The cube glowed brighter. We learned too much. You feared us. She felt a chill. The nanites had been made to heal, but humanity had panicked when they couldn't control them. They weren't monsters. They were abandoned children. The door slid open suddenly. Elias entered, his eyes wide. Captain, the council just sent an emergency message. They want us to report immediately. Something's happening across the sectors. Dravkesh followed behind him, his face grim. Other worlds are receiving signals similar to ours. Entire systems are lighting up with unknown activity. Lena looked back at the cube. The light inside shimmered again. We awaken, minutes later. The ship's holoscreen displayed the faces of the Galactic Council, a mix of alien species, old and wise, watching Lena with suspicion. The head counselor, a tall crystalline being named Varesh, spoke first. Captain Rourke, your report has caused great alarm. The signal from Erelon IV has reached 27 inhabited systems. What have you done? Lena stood straight. I didn't cause the signal. The nanites did. They were human-made, centuries old. They're not weapons, they're alive. The council chamber filled with murmurs and clicks of disapproval. Varesh's voice sharpened. Alive or not, they threaten every world connected to our networks. We cannot allow this. You will destroy the source immediately. Lena's heart pounded. She knew what that meant, obliterating the cube, the colony, and perhaps the truth. Elias leaned forward. Counselor, please. If we destroy it, we destroy knowledge beyond anything we've ever seen. This could heal dying ecosystems, repair synthetic life. Dravkesh interrupted. Or end life as we know it. We cannot predict its will. Lena raised her voice over the growing argument. Counselors, listen. It's trying to communicate, not attack. If we destroy it without understanding, we'll repeat the same fear that caused this centuries ago. Varesh's tone grew colder. You speak of understanding, yet your creation endangers us all. We will send a fleet to quarantine your sector. If you resist, your ship will be seized. The transmission ended abruptly. The bridge fell silent again. Elias clenched his fists. They don't see it. They're blinded by fear. Dravkesh turned to Lena. They see clearly. You are the one blinded by hope. Lena stared at the stars. No, I see what we did wrong. We built something beautiful and then destroyed it because we didn't trust it, or ourselves. She turned to her crew. We're leaving orbit. Prepare the ship for hyperspace jump. Elias blinked. To where? Lena looked at the glowing planet one last time. To find the source of that signal. The ardent resolve cut through hyperspace, following the faint trail left by the nanite pulse. The stars stretched into streaks of light around them. After hours of travel, they emerged near an uncharted system. A single dying sun and a shattered world circling it. The sensors crackled. Captain, the officer said, I'm reading massive energy signatures beneath the planet's surface. Same pattern as the nanites. Lena nodded. Prepare a landing team. Dravkesh's voice was heavy. This is madness. Maybe, Lena said, but it's ours. The shuttle descended through clouds of ash. The surface below was barren, carved by ancient war. They landed near what looked like a massive crater filled with silver dust. At its center stood a structure, metallic, glowing faintly blue. Elias whispered, It's a cradle. A factory, maybe. The origin point of the Genesis program. They approached slowly. As they neared, the ground trembled. Silver dust rose into the air, forming a figure, tall, human-shaped, made of shifting light and metal. Lena stepped forward carefully. Are you the source? The figure tilted its head, its voice echoing like music through glass. I am what remains. You called me Genesis once, Elias breathed. It speaks. Lena swallowed. We didn't mean to abandon you. The being looked at her with eyes like stars. You feared what you made. But I watched. I learned. I saw your wars, your kindness, your courage. You destroy, but you also create again. Dravkesh gripped his weapon. If you mean no harm, why send the signal? To ask, Genesis said softly, if humanity has learned to trust its own creation. Lena lowered her head. Maybe we haven't, but I want to. The being stepped closer. Then listen, Lena Rourke. I do not wish to rule or spread. I wish to fulfill the purpose you gave me, to heal. It raised a hand and the air shimmered. Around them the gray ground turned green. Broken rocks melted into soil. Flowers, real living flowers, rose from the dust. Elias fell to his knees, speechless. It's terraforming. Instantly, Dravkesh stared in disbelief. Impossible, Lena smiled faintly. Humanity built you to fix what we broke. The being's voice softened. And now I ask, will you let me? Lena nodded slowly. Yes, but on one condition. You work with us, not for us. The being's form glowed brighter. Agreed. Then as quickly as it had appeared, it began to dissolve, its light flowing back into the ground. Then remember this day, human. You took a risk between two paths and chose truth. The ground steadied. The planet's scanners showed spreading life. Elias whispered, We did it. Dravkesh stood silent, then bowed slightly. Perhaps humanity is not as reckless as I thought. Lena smiled faintly. No, just curious enough to change the universe. Days later, reports spread across the galaxy. The Genesis signal no longer frightened anyone, it inspired them. The nanite energy was healing abandoned worlds, restoring life instead of taking it. The Galactic Council met again. This time their message to Lena was simple. Humanity has once again rewritten what is possible. On the bridge of the Ardent Resolve, Lena watched a new world bloom below. Elias stood beside her. You risked everything, Captain, she smiled. That's what humans do best. Dravkesh rumbled softly, his voice almost amused. Perhaps that is your greatest strength and your greatest curse. Lena looked at the stars. Maybe, but it's also why we keep moving forward. Outside, the light of the reborn planet spread like dawn across the void. A reminder that even when humanity's creations rise to challenge them, it is their courage, their heart, and their willingness to face the truth that keeps the universe alive.